Wow. Wow. OBS really likes to fuck up and get rid of shit at times. Imagine that. Imagine that. Well, you know what? The desk is clean now. The vomit is gone, alright? Alright? The keyboard's working again. I don't have to worry about that for the next 30 fucking minutes until it happens again. But, yeah. So, who wants to give the introduction of the shit show that spawned all this?
Apparently, it was a tweet.
Oh, well, it was a tweet. It was a tweet.
Even more
Reds
evidence that Twitter should be destroyed. It was a bad idea, and it will forever be a bad idea.
You know, I am entitled to concur. I didn't want to be on that cesspool, yet I am, and there's a reason why I don't even look at it for days on end. But, you know, apparently our friend here, YouWished, otherwise known as Repentant Conservative, decided to say something that... you got some splaining to do, sir.
Oh, okay. Well, let me explain. Okay, first and foremost, every Democrat out there on the extreme side of the political spectrum currently wants to get rid of guns. It's been that way since 1996. It's been that way since before then. Ever since the Clinton bill and Clinton manipulated manipulated the system even after he got the 96 Gun Reform Act or Firearms Reform Act or whatever the hell it was called. Let's pull that up on my screen. Let's see. Second. I'll pull it up here. I'll look at it. One of the tabs I did not have open. 1996 Federal Gun Reform or Control Act. Okay. Now, within this, there were some really good laws that were passed that are still part of the federal law. Okay. And it expanded on the 1986 and the 1968 gun law acts that were passed in those years. And as we all know, in the 1986 Act, automatic weapons were banned federally if they were manufactured after the date that the bill was signed by Reagan. So when somebody yells, we need more gun control, and as Democrats.org explains, and this is from Healing the Soul of America, in the subtitle, Ending the Epidemic of Gun Violence. Gun violence is a public health crisis in the United States. Over 100,000 people are shot annually. Nearly 40,000 people die annually from guns. Okay. Now, all right. When you're talking the number of people shot and the number of deaths, where do you think the majority of that number comes from?
Is this where I come in?
Yes, please.
Okay, hang on one second. I would answer your question, but there's something on my desk. I just need to get rid of it, but safely. Hang on one second. Okay, where were we? So, by the way, 6OR556 is a very nice one. Steel core penetrators, oh, they're the best. So anyway, as I was saying.
Nice, you can read the label.
What does this have to do with my tweet? None of this has anything to do with my tweet. Absolutely nothing.
Okay, let's look at the analytical evidence that the Democrats have proposed. Okay, this is where I'm drawing this from, is directly from Democrats.org.
I don't care what Democrats.org says.
Okay, all right. So if we end up with a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate, do you not think that Biden would just blindly sign whatever they sent up?
let me get people on this same page that I'm on right now. Jared,
Okay.
can you do me a favor and can you pull up the tweet that was the cause of this discussion?
On it.
Okay, I'm also sending it to you to make it easier to find on Hangouts.
And of course, Google wants to be slow. There it is.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to ask you to do something for me. I'm going to ask you to read what I read. For fuck's sake. Hang on a second.
Diggy hole.
Hey, guess what? You're interrupting my gun debate. Can I call you back?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's the fucking commie.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Call
the
me back.
yes. Bye. Okay. Anyway,
Leave it to a commie to interrupt a discussion about guns.
go figure.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Jared, did you pull up the tweet?
I got it up right now. I am
Perfect. Do me a favor and read what I retweeted first.
So, from Caitlin Bennett, you want to take my guns, take my money, shut down our businesses, sell out to China, and called half of this country racist chumps. You're not an American, and you're not our ally, which was in response to a tweet from Joe Biden.
And can you read what I put on my retweet?
And Red's retweet is, nobody is taking your guns or your money, and the only thing that has shut down businesses is the pandemic that Trump called a hoax and continues to mismanage. He has failed this country in more ways than one, and Biden never called half the country racist chumps. Fucking liar.
Yes. So let me highlight the top portion there. Nobody is taking your guns. Now, what is the context of that? The context of that is that even if Biden had it on his wish list that he wanted to take away every single firearm from every single American, he wouldn't be able to do that. People have this distorted idea that if you're the president of the United States, you have the power to make these decisions. Well, apparently I was asleep and dreaming back in 2013 when Obama, along with a handful of Republicans and a handful of Democrats, both of which, by the way, were members of the NRA, drafted a bill that would introduce what he called common sense gun reforms. And both of them made sure that this is both Democrats and Republicans, made sure that it would not infringe on the Second Amendment. But guess what happened? A minority in the Senate blocked the bill from going through, even though it had support from members of the NRA. So if he was getting such pushback back in 2013, what makes you think that anybody, whether it be a Democratic president or a Republican president, would have the capability of taking your guns away?
You didn't read the platform, did you? You didn't read it all the way through. Let me read the last paragraph in this. Democrats will ban the manufacture and sale of assault weapons with high-capacity magazines. We will incentivize states to enact licensing requirements for owning firearms and extreme protection order laws that allow courts to temporarily remove guns from possession of those who are a danger to themselves or others. That I agree with. We will pass legislation requiring that guns safely be safely stored in homes. That I agree with. That I do. And Democrats believe gun companies should be held responsible for their products just like any other business and will prioritize repealing the law that shields gun manufacturers from civil liability. That I disagree with. Okay. Now, here's the thing. How long is that extreme risk protection order law? How long is temporarily? Okay. How long is this? Okay. Let's say I get mad at my wife. Okay. But I don't motion towards the gun, nothing. I just walk out of the house and I drive away and she calls the cops. Okay. I'm taking time to cool down. I'm taking time to chill the freak out. Okay. But she called the cops, said, well, he's really mad. I need an extreme risk protection order. How long until that gets back, until she goes back to the court and says, well, I don't think he's a risk anymore. Go ahead and give him back his guns.
Again,
or,
nothing that you just said has anything to do with my tweet or me explaining what my tweet is actually saying. You're involved in some debate, but you're not involved in this debate. My argument is very simple. You can have a wish list. For example, Trump had a wish list that he was going to build a wall. It was going to be a huge wall. It was going to say Trump in gold letters. It's going to be huge, guys. It's going to be huge. And guess what? Didn't happen. Didn't happen. Just because there's a wish list doesn't mean that wish list is going to go through. And guess what? You also have the Senate. And you also have a Republican skewed Supreme Court. There is no way that Biden is going to be able to push through legislation that is going to even remotely compromise your ability to own a gun, to have ammunition for that gun. Why? Because there are a lot of people in positions of power that can stop any such bill from happening, which is exactly why I brought up the push back in 2013 when Joe Biden was the vice president of the United States and agreed with Obama's push. He wasn't able to get this push through the Senate. So a minority in the Senate was able to strike down a bill that the majority wanted. So no, Biden is not going to have the capability of taking your guns. When I said no one is taking your guns, I meant no one is taking your guns because no one's going to have the capability of taking your guns, because any such legislation that gets pushed through the Senate is immediately going to get struck down, especially with a Republican bias and a Republican bias in the Supreme Court if it were to be sent to the Supreme Court. There is no avenue where any compromise can be made to the Second Amendment whatsoever. None. It does not exist.
There are ways around it, and Biden himself has even said that he would use executive power to do it.
Oh, really? Then why didn't this happen during the murders in Newtown? Obama had every opportunity to do it then, and Joe Biden was the vice president during that administration, yet nothing happened.
Because Obama actually tried to do it the right way. Right?
And what makes you think that Biden's going to do it the wrong way if such a situation were to happen again?
Because he said he would use executive powers to do it. And Clinton's use of executive powers to do said things that cost the Democrats the control in the Senate and the House in the 90s, that was the exact reason why. Okay? We do have midterms coming up in 2 years. Do we not? Okay.
Let me see if I can find... Because I don't believe that Biden said that he would use, quote, executive powers to push through gun legislation. I don't believe he ever said that. Yeah, I see that there's a plan to end gun violence. There's a plan for reforms. Everything is about a plan. But in none of these plans, I look up a few key words, and executive powers or anything that has the word executive in it, nothing comes up. Nothing. So can you please cite your source?
I'm looking here. Give me a second.
And by the way, correct me if I'm wrong, but executive powers are only used if you have an actual good reason. Otherwise, it's going to get struck down by the other checks and balances that we have in this country.
Not exactly. Executive orders are a murky issue in that aspect, One
Yeah, I
show-
know they're mostly shoot first, ask questions later. But here's the thing: people are going to ask questions. What has constantly been a fact in this country is that people don't wait to ask questions whenever the president makes a decision. They're asking questions pretty much immediately, and the people who are behind the checks and balances that would be able to veto any decision of the president of the United States, they will get to work pretty quickly. Before anything can actually be implemented, it would be challenged and it would most likely be defeated before anyone showed up to your place to take your gun away.
And again, not exactly, because you do have what they call Republican in name only rhinos, okay, that do and would go with the left on any legislation they thought would be beneficial to them. Okay. Again, the fact of the matter is that, yeah, like I said, you would have to pull your freaking tabs down.
Do we have a source or no?
Looking for it now.
Yeah, and also I just did like a word search on JoeBiden.com, and he lists like policy changes that he would like to make. But again, this is a wish list. This is things that he's going to be pushed through. The president's power to push through stuff or to get something introduced, yes, that exists. I'm not denying that it does. That doesn't, or it does exist. I'm not denying that it does exist because Obama tried to push through some what he called common sense reforms. Whether they're common sense or not, don't know, don't really care. Not really the point of this discussion. The point is that he wasn't able to do it even with a minority in the Senate. A minority in the Senate stopped something that the majority wanted. The Senate rules prevented this legislation from going through after the murders in Newtown.
Yes.
And so I imagine we're just going to have a rinse and repeat of this. And so when I say nobody is taking your guns, I actually mean no one's going to have the capability of taking your guns, whether it was a Democratic president, a Republican president, whatever. Basically, I'm responding to this person, this Caitlin Bennett, whatever her name is, apparently known for shitting her pants one time, that this type of hysteria helps nobody, and it doesn't make you look sane as a human being. It really doesn't.
Right. You know, I understand where you're coming from, Red. Okay. But understand where I'm coming from here is that there's enough language in this to make you think. Okay. Because here's one: reduces stockpiling of weapons. In order to reduce stockpiling of firearms, Biden supports legislation restricting the number of firearms an individual may purchase per month to one. Okay. So this is deer season up here. Where I'm at.
Well, oh, look, I'm not the only one with a ringtone.
Sorry.
Jared, you were supposed to, you said you were going to be muted through all this.
I'm keeping quiet.
Okay. So it's deer season up here. Okay. Where I'm at, where I deer hunt at here, I can use bow and arrow in this place. Right. I don't really have a call for a rifle. Okay. But let's say I get picked for one of the public draws that's a gun draw for where I live at. Because we do have public hunting lands up here, thank God. But it's a gun draw, so I'd need a rifle. Well, Last week I bought a pistol, or what was it? Monday I bought a pistol. So now I can't go buy another gun for another 30 days, but my draw comes up in 10. Okay, is that right? Would that be right? That's a form of keeping me from a gun. That's a form of gun grabbing.
Am I supposed to respond to that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I don't know what this has to do with my tweet, so I don't know what to say.
Okay, because you're not understanding what the true definition of taking and keeping guns away from the hands of responsible owners is. Okay. Taking guns doesn't just mean coming and physically grabbing guns. Okay, it never has. Okay. Taking guns is removing guns from the market so that those that didn't purchase them before the gun law went into place, that were saving up or whatever, and they fell short, they can no longer get the gun. So the government took that gun away from that individual, even though that individual is a law-abiding citizen, has no intent whatsoever of going out and harming anybody. Would use it for either hunting or home defense. Okay.
Okay,
The
so
government keeping guns out of responsible owners, first time buyers that would want an AR-15 now can't get an AR-15. Okay. And they may not want it in 223 or 5.56. They may want it in 6.5 Creedmoor or 308 so that they could hunt with it. Although the majority of hog hunters I know actually do use 223.
okay, so
Especially
so
when they're on.
what's the actual argument here? Is your argument that because there's a delay, because when I got my LCR 38 special, I had to wait 3 days before I actually picked that up because at the time I didn't have a concealed carry. Now that I have a concealed carry, I can go in, pick up a gun from Shoot Straight on Almerton Road, and come back. It's how I got the 6.556. So, are you saying that was a form of them keeping my guns away from me? Because if so, it did a piss poor job considering it's with me right now.
Well, no. Okay. What I'm saying is that if they pass any of these laws, if they reenact the 96 Gun Control Act, okay, we wouldn't get the 5 waiting days that we had back in 96. Okay. The first time I ever bought a gun of my own, so I didn't have to borrow one from my dad, was 97. And I went and I bought a 20 gauge, 30-06, a 9mm pistol, and a 20 gauge shotgun. Okay. So out of those 4 guns, the only one that I left with within the first 5 days was just the 12 gauge. I had to wait an additional 5 days for the other 3 guns.
So
gun.
So you're saying the wait is them taking your guns away?
Oh, okay. All right. Again, you've missed it. Okay. Let me repeat myself. If you remove a specific block of guns, a specific style of gun, because it meets 2 or more in a criteria, okay, the government took my ability away to purchase that gun legally. Did they not?
In what, 1996?
If the government removes the ability for me to purchase a AR-15 and prevents me from making any modification to it, putting a foregrip on it, a forward hand grip on a Picatinny rail, because that would be one of the 2 that would then make it 2 capabilities, therefore removing it from my possession. Would it not? Because I've just made an illegal
But you're missing a key word in your sentence.
Okay.
Do you know what that word is?
What is that?
If.
No, with Biden as president, it will be when, because there
No,
are
it won't be when, because that's what I'm telling you. You have a majority in the Supreme Court. You have the Senate. These are policies that would have to first get through them. They're not going to.
Okay, all right. He has the support in the Senate for the 96 bill. Okay, that would bring back all of these gun regulations. Okay, he has that support.
Yeah, not enough of it.
He does have that support, and he does have enough of that support to block the filibuster. Okay, he does have that.
Wait, you actually want to keep the filibuster?
Yeah, I'd like to keep the filibuster.
That's a shit show for another conversation.
That's exactly that. We can do this again next Sunday, and we can talk about the filibuster.
Oh boy.
I have a feeling I'm going to be sick next Sunday.
Here's the key point: is that he will have that support in the Senate for the 96 crime bill. Okay, there are enough Republicans right now that within his first 100 days, he will get that bill introduced through the House. It will pass the House. Okay, there are enough Republicans right now worried about their seats that they would pass the 96 gun legislation again. Okay, even though they know that they would face the backlash from their more rural constituents. Okay, and trust me, I live in BFE, Missouri. Jared can attest to that. Because if I'm not on my cell phone doing the meets and such, I sound like a freaking robot.
Okay.
Okay. So I live on property big enough to hunt, but not big enough to warrant having a rifle. Okay. Primarily the reason why I don't have an AR at the current time, because I don't need one. Okay. Do I want one? Yeah. Do I need one? No. And I usually put need over want first. Okay. But there are people out there who would put want over need first, and they would want an AR-15. Okay. They would want these guns that the 96 Act banned. Okay. But I can see the tilt in the country. Okay. And I can see more and more of this legislation getting passed. Well, our gun bill didn't work. Our initial gun bill didn't work. We need to up the power on it. So we're going to go from a 10 round magazine to a 6-round magazine or 6-round capability. Okay. So your pistols would no longer be allowed to have any type of semi-automatic pistol, because that would then fall under the assault weapon. Because no semi-automatic manufacturer is going to go out of their way to produce a 6-round magazine or a 5-round magazine. So you can only have 6 bullets in the gun. Okay, that wouldn't be cost effective. Okay. Now, as far as holding gun manufacturers accountable, okay, what are you holding them accountable for? Let's get that. Okay.
Jared, are you hearing him right now? Because
he's fading.
No, I'm not.
No, your audio was fading. It was getting difficult to hear you.
Oh, sorry.
Now, we do have a question from chat for you, YouWished, that might help actually more easily make your position understandable.
Okay.
Can you please name one qualification in Canada that you don't agree with that is keeping firearms from people?
It's not so much the firearms, it's the magazine capacity. Right? because I know of several situations or several possible scenarios that could occur where you would run into a situation where you'd want to have a higher capacity magazine than 5.
In other news, I would like to drive a Kenworth truck with no license.
Yeah.
Look, the idea is simple. The idea is simple in this one. There have been bills pushed through, or at least attempted to get pushed through, that would limit capacity of magazines. There have been attempts to try and put forward these, quote, common sense gun laws that, by the way, wouldn't even require registry. It outright forbid it. And then you also got to think about the ability for the CDC to actually study this garbage in the first place. All of it did not go through. All of it failed. All of it failed miserably. It failed royally.
There were things with the Common Sense Gun Act that I wanted to see pass through. Okay, I'd have liked to have seen the entire thing pass through. Okay, but the fact of the matter is that there were too many of the Republicans that were worried about HIPAA violations should the CDC be allowed to study it. That's part of the reason why it failed. Okay, was they were worried that individual patients would lose their privacy through that. Okay, and I kind of understand their point in that, but at the same time, I disagreed with it because when you're talking about people with mental disabilities that would make them unstable enough to be a threat to themselves or others, okay, severe depression, okay, there's a laundry list of them. I don't remember all of them. Paranoid schizophrenia, diseases like that. Do we need to keep guns out of their hands until they're deemed by doctors to actually be allowed to possess a firearm? Yes, we do. Okay. Would you agree with me on that? Reds? Joe, hush. Sorry, my sons.
Something about diarrhea?
My youngest.
Okay. My individual opinions about which policies should be passed, shouldn't be passed, whatever, it doesn't matter. The thing that I am appealing to is history.
Okay.
That is the thing I was appealing to in my tweet. Again, I don't care what Biden has on his wish list. I guarantee you that when it comes to firearms, the vast majority of it is not going to get passed.
No.
Nope, I do not believe that for a second, because guess what? This was the same exact scaremongering that the Republicans were putting out when Obama won the presidency. And guess what? Jack shit happened. He had 8 years to do something. 8 years. And the only not only could he not do anything when it came to the topic of guns or the policies revolving around guns, he couldn't even get Hillary fucking Clinton elected. So at the very end of the day, Obama didn't fail for 8 years to do anything about gun control. He failed for an additional 4 on top of that. So it turns out that the scaremongerings and the projections that they're going to come and take your guns, they're going to come and take your guns is already, let's see, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years late. What's taken them so long?
Well, the problem with it was that he had, when Obama was in office, he had a whole hardline, truly conservative representatives in the Senate. Right? These were individual freedom guys at the cost of the greater good. Okay? That's what Obama was facing with the Senate that he was in, that he had for 12 years or for 8 years. Okay? we're looking at a demographic shift, especially in Texas and in other states. States that were no longer swing states are now swing states. States that hadn't swung in 30 years are now swinging.
Yeah, but that's not because of the position on guns. I would think it's the position of, other things. Let's just say other things. I doubt gun reform was on people's, was at the top of people's list when they were making the decision to either vote for Trump or Biden.
True. Okay. Because there were individuals like myself included that thought, okay, Trump's going to win it. It's going to be tight, but Trump would probably win it. Okay. Trump didn't win it. Okay. And the fact of the matter is that Trump is more an individual right beyond the greater good type of individual. Okay. I'm not going to call him a politician because he's not a politician. He's a businessman that knows something about business, but not enough to really make it. He's not a Bill Gates, and he's not who's the founder of Facebook?
Zuckerberg.
He's not a Mark Zuckerberg. Okay. He doesn't have any way other than real estate to really do any good for him. Okay. Biden, on the other hand, is a greater good at the cost of civil liberties politician. Okay. So would he enact gun control and possible long-term confiscation? I'd see him trying it.
Let's assume that he does try it. Let's assume that he does try it. I guarantee you, the NRA with their lobbyists, they'll be on that like flies on hot shit.
I'm not denying that. Okay,
exactly.
But the NRA
and guess what? The NRA has a history of getting what they want. They are organized as fuck. They know what they're doing. When it comes to focusing on an issue and making sure that the right people are informed, that the right people get involved, they are second to none. Their organization skills are just over the top. Trump could have learned a little something or two from the NRA. But when you look at the fact that the NRA, one, exists, two, that the Supreme Court is of a Republican swing right now, that the Senate is of a Republican swing right now, you have three really big case of absolutely the fuck not when it comes to Biden pushing through any sort of gun legislation that he claims will make sense. Now, whether they do or not is, people are free to debate those things. I personally haven't looked at them. That's not the reason I voted for them. I haven't looked at them because I was like, yeah, that ain't going to happen. And it didn't even register on the radar at all. If we go, let's say this, by the time that Joe Biden is up for re-election, regardless who he's running against, I guarantee you that after 4 years, nothing will change. And if he is re-elected, I guarantee nothing will change again. There'll be way too much in his way, and he's going to be busy with other projects to focus on firearms. As of right now, firearms, I bet you, is at the very bottom of his list because we're kind of in a global pandemic, and he kind of needs to focus on that. That was one of the main things that he was campaigning about: pandemic, the coronavirus. We got to go ahead and take care of this. Let's listen to scientists. Blah blah blah. So he's going to focus on that. But during his speeches, during the press conferences, during the interviews, his policy when it comes to gun reform almost completely absent from his interviews and speeches and whatnot. What has been the focus of his speeches and his appearances? Coronavirus, climate change, shit like that. It doesn't seem that Biden is too enthused about pursuing this to the extent that people say he's going to pursue it to. And if he was enthused about it, he's going to hit roadblocks along the way, pretty strong ones on top of that. Because, again, we have a Republican-swung Supreme Court. We have a Republican-swung Senate. We have the NRA that's organized as fuck. There are plenty of people who are ready and willing to stand up for the Second Amendment and take that shit to the extreme if they have to. They will get in Biden's way at every fucking step because they've been doing it for 12, 13, 15 years.
Yeah. Well, they've actually been doing it longer than that, but I digress. Okay. But here's the thing. You mentioned the NRA. Okay. The NRA has lost favor in the last 10 years, has it not? It's been losing favor.
I don't know how much favor it has. All I know is that they still have pretty significant political swing. Because if you, at this point, any sort of damage that the NRA is receiving is a lot like the fucking ice giant from Hercules getting a paper cut. It's not enough to slow it down to any significant amount. Unless you have actual Hercules in the fight, nothing's going to change. And guess what? That Hercules is not Joe Biden.
No. And I agree with you, but I still think that with the pushes, okay, and Colin Noir did a better job covering this on YouTube than I could, okay? Colin Noir said that if it happens, if they initiate the 96 and the gun violence doesn't come down, and you're talking about all the gun violence, not just mass shootings, okay? You're talking about all the major cities still have a major problem with gun violence. Chicago has one of the worst problems with gun violence right now. How many gun stores are in Chicago? None. Then they're going to do something else. Okay? They're going to crack down on it. They're going to further restrict the ammunition limits. They're going to say that if it's a semi-automatic, you can't have that. Okay? They may exclude, at first, they may exclude those guns. Okay? Austria is a great look at that history. Okay? What happened in Austria when they capitulated to Hitler?
Are we? I just want to make sure I understand. Are we now making comparisons between Joe Biden's potential policies that he's going to introduce to what happened during the time of Hitler?
It was the same thing. It's just that Austria is a great look at it. Austria is a great look at history. We're not talking about whether or not they're Nazis or not. Okay? If you're trying to draw that conclusion, you're wrong in that conclusion.
No, I'm saying you're starting to go towards a slippery slope fallacy. There's checks and balances in place that weren't exactly there in Nazi Germany.
There were checks and balances in Austria that were there.
Yeah, obviously they didn't do a good job because the difference between their history and our history is that the history that I introduced showed the quote common sense gun legislation getting blocked. Over there, something fucked up and it went through. That fuck up does not exist with the history that we're talking about here. Again, Obama had the majority of the House and the Senate backing him, and it still failed. It didn't even have to touch the Supreme Court.
Again, let me complete. Okay. When Austria capitulated and became part of Germany, Joe, go away. Sorry. When they capitulated, okay, they had to register their weapons. Okay? Didn't matter who owned them, they still had to register their weapons. Over the course of the next 2 years, 3 years, or whatever it was, they started saying, well, we've got this problem, we've got this problem, we've got this problem, we need to start taking your guns because your guns fall under this category, or this category. Okay, until none of the populace was armed. And by the time that Austrians figured out what the hell was going on with their neighbors who were Jewish, that they really liked, it was too late for them to do anything about it. Right? Now, I'm not saying that that extreme circumstance will happen in America, but I'm saying that if you put in a gun registry where everybody has to register the weapon, oh, by the way, we do that when we fill out the yellow form or when we get our ID cards from the state that we've been licensed in. I'm licensed in 2 states, Texas and Missouri. Okay, I do that for work purposes. If we have to go to an extra registry to catch all the guns, we're still not going to catch all the guns. And that's when the gun violence, you're going to see this, the gun violence start to maybe tail off a little bit, but you're still going to have the situation of the majority of the guns that were used in violent crimes to initiate this were brought in were illegally obtained. They were stolen. They were sold on the black market. Okay, because anybody with any criminal intent is not going to bother to register that weapon.
You brought up a registry when it came to Hitler and Nazi Germany and shit like that. A registry was removed explicitly in the text when a bill was introduced back in 2013. It still failed. So if you were to add a registry to the bill and it failed without it, you think adding more bullshit in this bill is going to make it easier to swallow? No, it's going to be like, well, you gave me a shit sandwich, but now you gave me a shit sandwich with guac. Okay, I see that they're changing, but I hate shit and I hate guac. Why would you put them together and expect me to be okay with this? That's essentially what, if what you're saying is true, Biden would be doing. Biden would be making an unfavorable bill even more unfavorable. It would be worse than the bill that was introduced back in 2013, again, after the Newtown massacre. And so we're right back at a situation where I can look at history, see what didn't pass, see that this is worse, and then come to a conclusion that way. Or I can listen to this lady who I had the pleasure of retweeting, who is currently in the process of fear-mongering to all of her Twitter followers. I think I'm going to follow history here. No one is going to take your guns. I guarantee that absolutely nothing is going to change during Biden's presidency when it comes to guns. And if it does, I'll be impressed. I'll be impressed if he can get any sort of legislation passed. It'll probably be of no consequence to you or me or anyone else that wants to go to Shoot Straight and buy shit until we're bankrupt. I'll be surprised if he can push anything through. But I'm telling you right now, the chances of that happening are equivalent to the chances of me being struck by lightning twice within the next 5 seconds. Let's see what happens.
Well, and I agree with you to that point, but I'm saying that there is a shift coming in 2 years, okay, when the Senate and the House will be democratically controlled. Okay, I can see that writing on the wall from now. Okay, and the Senate could shift as early as what, December? Because the 2 seats are up in Georgia. They're up for runoff election.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Back in 2013, you also had a small, granted it was small, but a significant number of Democrats also shot the bill down because they were NRA members. And guess what? A lot of Democrats who are in the Senate are members of the NRA. And they like the Second Amendment. They like their guns. They have guns, and they would hate to see anything bad happen to those guns. So not only do you have a Senate that is Republican controlled, even if it were to swing just slightly towards the Democrats, what you would see is not a push for gun reform. You would see a push for more fuel efficient vehicles because we're kind of killing this planet with CO2. They would
Yeah.
focus in other areas. They wouldn't focus on gun reform because that is literally at the bottom of the list right now. And I bet you that throughout the presidency of Joe Biden is going to remain at the bottom of the list. It's practically an unmovable object right now. People have tried to move it and they have failed every single time.
Okay. All right. So let's run an unlikely scenario past you. Okay.
So long as we agree that it's unlikely.
Well, yes, it'll probably be unlikely. Okay. But let's say within the first 180, 190 days. Okay. For Missouri right now, I'm going through a freaking heat wave in November. And I think all this week it's been in the 70s. We're supposed to get a cool down. Okay. But let's say that this continues and science says, look, we thought we had till 2030 to get shit straightened out. Now we only have until 2024. Okay. And the Republicans kind of got to look at each other and got to go, okay, well, then in that case, let's side with the Democrats on climate control. Let's get some shit done there. Okay. Fuel efficient vehicles by 2024, 2025. Okay. Or not fuel efficient, fuel less as far as oil and gas goes. You're always going to have oil because you're going to need lubricants. So even your synthetic base still has some petroleum product in it, but it's not like motor oil is today.
Okay, but what's the unlikely scenario?
All right, the unlikely scenario is that by 2022, he gets the environmental shit and he gets the other stuff that he wants to get through passed. What's next on his agenda? The gun control. 2022, Congress shifts. Okay, both House and Senate are there, and they push through an amendment making, and this is highly unlikely, okay, but making the number of appellate courts in the U.S. district, having that number equal to the number of justices on the Supreme Court, and instead of the Supreme Court being a lifetime appointment, and this is something I do support, making them elected to those districts. And I think there's like 14 or 15 districts. So you'd have 14 or 15 judges. And each one of the districts would elect their own justice. Would that not shift enough of the power for Biden to do what he wants to do?
I don't believe so. No, I don't think that will happen at all. I don't think there'll be enough of a shift of any powers in order for Biden to push through any sort of meaningful gun legislation.
Okay.
If the stars were to align in just such a way that every single Republican, every single Democrat, and the NRA did absolutely nothing, they just sat on their hands that particular evening for whatever reason. They went out and had some lunch. And the Supreme Court was like, yeah, whatever, pass. So, okay, back to my Angry Birds game. Then, yes, Biden will be able to push through whatever the hell he wants in that case, not just gun reform, but everything. But as of right now, there's just too many things on the table that will get in the way of Biden even coming to acknowledge the so-called promises that he's made about gun. For example, climate change and clean energy, and also the racial economy thing that he was talking about. I don't even know what he's talking about there. I'll have to read it. But he's also talking about fixing the bankruptcy system. He's also talking about healthcare. And you know how much of a shit show that's going to turn out to be, which is going to take not months, but years. It might take his entire presidency to make any meaningful changes in healthcare.
It'll take well beyond his presidency with whatever he introduces for universal health care. It'll take decades beyond that.
Exactly.
Right
and
now,
these are things, and yeah, but these are things, I guarantee you that's not just health care that's going to last well beyond his presidency. It's also clean energy and the changes he wishes to make about how the economy is structured, strengthening rural America, whatever the fuck that means. I mean, he has a lot of plans, and the gun reform thing is towards the very bottom of the list. I mean, he's also talking about Biden's plan for the Jewish community. That's above where the reform with guns is. That's above it. I guarantee you he's probably not even going to even touch that plan.
Well, yeah, because Bernie Sanders would call him a racist the instant he tries anything.
You know, it is. And you know what? I wanted Bernie so bad, but you win some, you lose some, I guess. But what I think we need to do, honestly, and this is exactly the point of my tweet, and let's see if you agree with this.
Okay.
I believe that people are in the wrong when they fearmonger, when there is absolutely no evidence that such a tyrannical government is going to be in power for the next 4 years. I do not believe that we're going to see such a night and day shift. We're all going to get up. We're going to put on our shitty clothes to work our shitty job, to get a shitty paycheck and live out our shitty lives. This almost exactly the same that we were. Things aren't going to change a whole hell of a lot. Basically, my position is that we should settle for Biden. He wasn't your first choice, but settle for Biden. That was my campaign. Settle for Biden. Because do I like the guy? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It wasn't a vote between Biden and Trump. It was a vote between Trump and not Trump. And that's how the majority of Americans looked at it, quite honestly. That's my personal feeling on it. And so when you look at this,
agree with you. I agree with you. Fear-mongering is bad.
Yeah, fear-mongering is bad. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that this person was trying to tweet out this idea that there's going to be a tyrannical government hovering over your guns, and they're going to take it by force and whatever, and they're going to take your money, they're going to take your jobs, they're going to rip everything apart, the fabric of the United States itself. And I'm like, fuck you. That's not what's going to happen, and that's why I made that retweet.
Okay, all right. And I can understand that, and I agree with that, okay? Yeah. Fear-mongering is a thing, okay? And no, I don't agree with it. I equate it to fear porn on YouTube. Okay. And if you don't know what fear porn is, I suggest you look it up because it's kind of funny, some of the stuff that comes out there. But a lot of it is your Nathan Thompsons and your Bob Noodles. Okay. And unfortunately, okay. And I kind of take offense to it because one thing is that I believe that free speech is all speech. Okay. You point out the bad ideas and you drum them down, basically, like you do with flat earthers, pretty much, right, Reds?
Uh-huh.
Okay. All right. So a lot of these fear-mongering tweets come from some of the things some of the representatives have said in the past. A lot of it comes from Beto O'Rourke. Right? I understand where a lot of it comes from. Where he said, "Hell yes, we're coming to take your AR-15s. We're coming to take your your AK-47s." Right? I understand that. I was in Dallas. I was in downtown Dallas when the 6 officers got killed down there back in 2015. I was 2 blocks away. I could have very easily been shot. Okay? I just happened to be in the safest place possible for me to be in at a location. And to hear those shots ring out, that is unnerving. Okay? I get all of that. Okay? But when you're talking about the pushes in the media to get rid of specific weapons and specific weapons types, to me that's a confiscation, because if you can't send a person in who's never bought a gun before and they see your AR-15 sitting in the corner of your room or in your closet, or you open up your gun safe or wherever you choose to keep your guns, okay, and they say, hey, that's a cool looking gun, can we go down to the range and shoot it? And you say, yeah, come on, let's go down to the range. You go shoot it. They shoot your gun. They love it. They love the way that it recoils. They love the way that it fires, that it handles, that it feels. Now they can't go buy a similar gun. They can't buy the same gun because you own that one gun. Right? So the government took that gun away from them before they had the ability to buy it. Would you agree with me on that?
I don't agree, because all of this, all this hinges on media push. And let me tell you, the media is wrong a lot of the times. Just watch CNN and Fox News for that. And also to the can I just make hang on, let me just make a comment to someone else. You did settle for shit, Mr. Roberts. And also, Obamacare? I'm sorry, John McCain disagrees with you. You must feel like shit now, don't you? Fucking idiot. Anyway, moving on. This isn't a talk about healthcare. This is a talk about guns. So just making that clear. Okay, moving forward, I think it's this. I don't care what the media says. I only care about what history says. Hindsight's 20/20 on this fact, and here are the facts. There was a push for what they called common sense gun reform. This push, this policy, did not have a registry in it at all. If we were to add a registry of any kind to this piece of legislation, it would be laughed out of Congress and most definitely the Senate. If we were to push through even more stuff on top of the registry, then it would become even more less favorable. And by some miracle, it got past the House and the Senate. The Supreme Court can also have a say on the matter if certain representatives bring it to the attention of the Supreme Court. I do not believe, as well, that the NRA is simply going to sit on their hands. The NRA has a history of not sitting on their hands. And also the NRA has gone through financial issues before, nothing that really crippled them. And I highly doubt, as of right now, they are going to be crippled in this aspect. During the pandemic, a lot of people cut back on donating to the NRA. But yet, they have still been able to maintain a presence in Washington, D.C., and they made damn sure that that wasn't going to change. So when you take all of this together, you have a cumulative case to show that the idea that the government is going to tyrannically take your guns or introduce legislation that's going to make it neon impossible for you to get a gun, to me, is fear-mongering. And if you are a diehard lefty, like super, super left, wishful thinking at best.
I'd agree with you on that, but
All
to
right.
an extent. I'd
Jared?
rather not. Okay.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No. I'd rather not have to risk the facing a tyrannical government, either within or without. Okay. Let's say for some reason that we got hit again, surprise attack, but this time it's, not even a full-on invasion. They're hitting the weakest points on the border. They're hitting the weakest points in our port system. Okay. Place is isolated. Okay. But they were able to get to a point where they could establish a beachhead somewhere. Somebody could establish a beachhead. Cats. Swear to God, I want to throw these cats out. I can't. Sorry. But I would rather not have to face them with a single shot shotgun if I had the availability of an AR-15 being able to be selected. You understand where I'm coming from on that? Okay. To any,
hang on one second. Jared, do you want to address someone in the live chat?
Oh, I already have, but let's make it clear, and I will read verbatim what I already put into the chat. Let me make sure I get the last name right. To Robert Sever, you're still here, you're still able to talk, and you're not being censored. So you got harsh words back in response to something you said in chat. What's the problem?
Yeah. And by the way, I'm not talking about Obama.
Because-
I'm not talking about Obamacare. Okay. Again, I want a healthcare system that's similar to what Canada has. Okay. So I'm not for Obamacare. I'm not for any of this, oh, let's go ahead and do patchwork bullshit when it comes to healthcare. No, I'm not for any of that. None of this shit was about Obamacare. Now, if you look at Obama's policies in totality, I would argue that, yeah, he was actually a pretty damn good president. Deal with it. But to say like, oh, have you been living under a rock? Obamacare this. Like, I don't give a shit about Obamacare. Yeah, Obamacare was shit policy because it didn't address the problem. The problem is we have a for-profit health care system where you can get fucked by going to the wrong hospital. You can get fucked by going to the right hospital but getting the right doctor or getting the wrong doctor. Or you can get fucked by basically being underinsured, in which case you're fucked there as well. The American healthcare system gives you so many options on how you want to get fucked. And Obamacare only compounded the problem to extend even further away. Are every single one of Obama's policies great? Absolutely not. There is no such thing as a perfect presidency in everyone's fucking eyes. But if you're looking at the grand totality of things, Obama was actually pretty decent compared to a few alternatives that were fucking out there. And I would argue that if we had Obama for 4 more years, unfortunately that can't happen because of the way the United States works, whatever, I guarantee you we would be in a little bit less shit right now than because, he might actually take the pandemic somewhat kind of maybe seriously. Again, you can disagree with me on that. That's fine. But it's like, I ain't someone for shit. You've been living under a rock. So you can throw shit at me. But when I tell you to go fuck yourself, you get offended? Fuck you, dude.
Hold on a second, Reds. Hang on, Jared. Robert, then make your freaking point. Make it concise. Make it clear.
I'm sorry. What part of that was too complicated to understand?
And
because here's the thing, Robert. Okay, Robert. Here's the thing. I still owe $20,000 from last year. Jared, you want to tell them what happened to me last year?
it was, what, 3 separate heart attacks in succession?
Yes.
And
Had Obamacare actually done what it was supposed to, but because, yes, it got gutted, guess what? Okay, I'm on the hook for that. Okay, so let's see your point. Let's read your point. Let's get it out there. Okay, or vanish.
Well, I did see where he did mention that it was in response to Red saying things don't happen that quickly. Yeah, Obamacare didn't happen that quickly. There was a rollout that actually got delayed on multiple occasions. So even still, where was Red's statement wrong?
Not only that, it was a patchwork. It was a patchwork. We have exactly. See, he's like, I got $30,000 in medical bills. Hey, guess what? A lot of people, go to the hospital, like let's say in Canada, and actually, Jared Geostreber, you know that guy, that sexy son of a bitch.
Sure,
Yeah,
we'll go with that term.
He had knee surgery, where they had to literally reconstruct his knee. His total cost was $15 American for using the hospital telephone. That's the type of healthcare I would like to see the United States introduce. Obamacare did not do that. Our current system doesn't do that. And the reason why I was pushing so much for Bernie Sanders was because of his plans for healthcare. And he made it clear that, look, this is going to take a fucking while. There's a lot of questions that we need to ask and a lot of problems that we need to solve, but we're not going to get to a place where we want to be unless we actually start tackling these fucking issues. And so that's why I voted for him. And that's why I said settle for Biden, because Biden doesn't want to do that. So yeah, settle for Biden, I fucking guess. I can't get what I want, so I'll take the next best thing. Fuck it.
All right. Well, now that we've had that wonderful diversion, is
Yes.
there anything more you'd like to say on the actual original intended topic of this?
Absolutely
Either of
not.
you.
Absolutely not. I'm game. I'm good.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess I get closing remarks then or whatever.
Sure thing.
Okay. All right. Yes, however highly unlikely the current situation is, we still face the fact of a changing demographic in this country. We face a changing demographic across the board. Okay? It is not just that there is fear mongering going on. Yes, I understand it. Okay? I understand where we're at. Okay, I can see where we're at as a country, as a nation, and I understand that there are people around me that personally they don't make as much as I do in a year, and I don't work all year. Okay, I don't work. I maybe work 6 months out of the year total. But I do have property I can hunt. My neighbors have property they can hunt without their guns, without specified guns, specific guns to them, to their taste, to their wants and their needs. They wouldn't be able to feed themselves. That's where a large chunk of this fear mongering is coming from, is because there are other Republicans that see this. These are people who don't want to be on food stamps. They don't want to be on TANF. They don't want to be on these things. That's why they cling so hard to their guns. Okay? It's because there is typically, or there is the perceived threat of gun confiscation by the left. Okay? I would dare say that there was probably more threat of gun confiscation under 4 more years of Trump than there was, or that there is currently under Biden. Okay? Because I don't see Trump willingly walking out the door, and I see 100,000, 200,000 Trump fanatics marching on Washington to keep Biden out of the White House. Right? I do see that. Right? Yes, 700,000 people marched in protest of Biden winning the election. Okay. Do I believe he stole it? No, I don't. Do I have questions about the ballot thing? Yes, I do. But you know what? That's an issue for the courts. That's not an issue for me to sit here and argue. Current situation is red's right. Okay. And I concede this to red. Okay. Because currently and historically in America, anything other than the automatic weapons ban that occurred in the most current automatic weapons ban occurred in 86 under Reagan. Okay. But that was a compromise. We gave up the automatic weapons so that the FFL dealers could actually conduct their business and not have the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms up their ass every day. Okay. And at the time, prior to 86, the ATF was constantly up the FFL dealers' butts just about every day. If not every day, it was at least twice a month, which brought about the 1986 laws, which we're currently under. Yes, Democrats will continue to target what they consider, quote unquote, assault rifles. Okay. As a gun owner, I know better. Okay. I currently have 4 pistols. Okay? That's all I need. I have 4 pistols because of work, because one job requires me to have a 9mm automatic or semi-automatic. One requires me to have a .38 revolver. One job requires me to have a .40 caliber automatic, and another one requires me to carry a 45 caliber pistol. Of that, they're all registered. They already are. I filled out the yellow form, and I walked out with my pistol the same day. Okay. Again, I agree. Any restriction on a particular type of gun, I consider that the government taking it away because they're the ones that enacted the law to take it away, to get it off the store shelf. And there's a really nice 6.5 Creedmoor on the AK frame, or on the, not on the AK frame, but the AR frame, I'd love to own. Unfortunately, it's a little bit out of my reach right now. You know, maybe by Christmas I'll be able to go buy myself one. But that's besides the point. Okay. Fact of the matter is, yes, Red's right. Currently, we're not going to have a gun confiscation. Could it happen in the future, 5 or 20, 25 years down the line? It could. Especially if we don't learn to get along with each other and just continuously blast it out with each other. Somewhere in America, we come to think that the Wild West was really real from what we saw on TV back in the 50s. They didn't even back in the 1800s. They didn't solve it with guns. The only thing they ever solved with guns was the issue of slavery. So, guys, let's try to work together. Let's have common discourse. And Rez, I hope you would agree with me when I say we've had a productive conversation.
I don't think your position changed or my position changed. So,
but we've had productive. Well, productive is relative. We treated each other with civil discourse, correct?
Yeah, I wasn't mad at you. I was mad at some dipshit in the live chat, but
I know.
But yeah, anyway, I also relinquished my right, I guess, to have a closing statement. So, Jared, if you want to add something, it's all you.
The only thing that I have to add at this point is I'm glad I didn't run out of alcohol, glad I stocked up beforehand, and during the course of all of this, we have gotten 3 super chats, which I will go ahead and acknowledge and read out now. The first one from NANA for, the perfect number, $6.66 US, with you, Red, on this next to nothing has changed during a presidency. He agrees. Hail Sagan. Rodent no last name for $2 US. More like soft sit right to travel, with a couple of your talking points there, YouWished. And just recently came in from Rodent no last name for $5 US. Your long gun won't defend against a carrier strike. Whoops! Which...
I agree with the last one. Oh, wait, can I read this one?
Go for
it. Let's see. Slicks 666, 2 pounds. Make it 4.
All right, and with that, this has been it's been something. Yeah, it's been something, but I need to go for a walk for a few. You know, if anyone is interested in continuing discussion on their own, well, go ahead and join the Discord server. I'm sure there will be plenty who will be willing and able to further the discussion with you if you are so inclined. Hell, who knows, I might even join in a few, but yeah, I need to go for a walk. I need to sober up a little bit.
All right, I'm gonna go
shot the last of that Yingling.
Yeah. And with that, thank
both of engage in sins of the flesh. So
you do that. Thank you all for showing up, and we will see you all next time.